Hello and welcome to SRIRAM's IAS. In this video of this series where we are discussing economy from basics to advanced, we shall be learning about a most important concept in microeconomics, which is the price elasticity of demand. अब ये topic important क्यों है? Because this topic sets the base to understand that how demand actually changes in the market. Now, once we understand that demand at micro level, then only we would be able to understand demand at macro level. Then only we can understand that demand, aggregate demand, how it actually changes in the market and how it actually happens in macroeconomics. That is why this topic is important. Now, let's begin the discussion, and before that I would announce here that हमारे यहाँ अभी श्रीराम IAS में up to 25% ऑफ चल रहा है हर एक कोर्स पे. You can just do one thing, call us on our numbers and get yourself registered, and after a counseling session and discuss your doubts with mentors. You can also go to description section, fill the form there. There is a Google form, a link would be attached there. You can fill that form and get yourself connected to a mentor, and then get your preparation for UPSC next attempt or next to next attempt. Even if you are preparing a preparation of 2 years, even if you are in your college, you can get connected to the right mentor. Then only you will be able to see that how is actually your course or the track which you would be following in the future. You will be seeing that in the mentorship session, that how actually should I shape my strategy, how should I plan my things, how should I plan the next 1 year, 2 years, or how should I plan for the next attempt which just is 9 months away. Therefore, mentorship comes in handy over there, and a mentor with a good amount of experience can help you in solving all your doubts and dilemmas. Now, without wasting time, let's understand elasticity. What elasticity is actually, the basic fundamental concept of elasticity says responsiveness. What is the actual meaning of elasticity? Elasticity says that if there is something which is elastic in nature, how much force should I actually put on this object so that its tendency to stretch comes into force. Now, once we apply force on this object which is solid in nature, this won't stretch, but if we apply heat or some other force on this, it may stretch. Therefore, similarly, a product or a good which is elastic in nature, say the elasticity of a rubber band, how much force will you apply on that rubber band and it will stretch by how much? So, there is a proportionate in its length and the force applied to it. That is what happens with price and demand in the market. Now, once you understand this, you need to see that price and demand goes all along with one and each other. How? Because we have read in the law of demand that the price and demand or quantity demanded goes hand in hand. How? If the price increases, the demand will decrease. That is what makes the demand curve downward sloping. Now, once we understand this, that any increase in price will lead to decrease in demand, this sets the paradigm for the next concept. And we discussed also the market equilibrium also, that there is an equilibrium which has to be achieved. This equilibrium has to be achieved as this is the point where demand and supply both will match each other at a required equilibrium price. Now, all the 3 points will match each other, and then the market will be set at an equilibrium price with equilibrium demand and equilibrium quantity and supply. Okay? Now, once we understand that, we also need to understand that how much change would be there in this curve, if price increases by just 10%, 20%, or price increases just by 1%. how much change would be there in the demand of the same product. That is why we will be reading 5 types of elasticity, whether that is perfectly elastic or inelastic in nature, whether that is relatively elastic or totally inelastic or relatively inelastic, or whether that is unitary in nature. Simple. I'll just simplify it a bit more. Now, remember one thing, as I said that it is proportionate responsiveness. Now, you need to remember one thing, that if there is a 10% change in price, that there is a change of 10% in price, there should be a change of 10% in demand. Therefore, 10 by 10, which is equal to 1, which makes the elasticity unitary in nature. This thing happens with multiple goods. Like, if you see apples, a person, if he likes having apples and suddenly there is a 10% drop in the price of apples, what will that person do? He might think that अगर मैं कल तक 200 रुपए के 200 रुपीस के 2 kgs लेके आता था और आज की डेट में there is just 180 rupees का per kg, and he still has a budget of 200 rupees for apples because he likes apples. So therefore what he will do is, if there is a 10% drop, what he will do is, वो इन भाई साहब को बोल देगा भैया 100 ग्राम एक्स्ट्रा डाल देना, 100 grams extra. That is what makes the demand increase by equal proportion. ठीक है, 10% decrease, 10% increase in quantity and supply both, in quantity demanded and price, which makes the demand elasticity unitary in nature. Why? Because the good has a liking for that person. The good attracts the person to purchase more when its price decreases. But only that much. If there is a drop of just 90% in apple prices, or say 50% drop is there, the person who was just eating 2 kgs for 1 day or 2 kgs for 2 days, would he buy 4 kgs for just 2 days? Because the shelf life of that product would not be there. So therefore, it also depends that how much elasticity till how much time. One is the unitary elasticity of price, where the price elasticity of demand equals to 1. Remember the words and remember the formulas also. Okay? Now, one more elasticity is there which we should remember, that is if a product or if the price of a product decreases by just, I can say minimal decrease is there. Minimal decrease or minimal change in the percentage, minimal percentage change in the price of a product will lead to infinite change in the percentage of quantity demanded of that product. That means that even if the price decreases by just 1%, the demand will increase exponentially. This happens with luxury goods usually. If the demand of a good, say Rolls-Royce, decreases by just 10%, if the price of it decreases by 10%, the demand may increase by 20% or it may increase exponentially. Why so? Because all the people who were just lying below this line, where they were not able to purchase Rolls-Royce, where they were not be able to purchase Rolls-Royce, they will now have the edge, because just a 10% decrease in the price is equal to around, I can say 30 lakhs or 40 lakhs if the car is of 4 crores. अगर 4 करोड़ की गाड़ी है, 10% का डिक्रीज हो गया प्राइस में, तो 40 लाख का डिक्रीज हो गया. Now this makes the person to pay the down payment and purchase it. Also, there is one more thing. This thing happens with these kinds of luxury bags also. ठीक है, लग्जरी आइटम्स के साथ ये होगा दैट द डिमांड विल बी परफेक्टली इलास्टिक, दैट इफ देयर इज अ माइनर ड्रॉप इन द प्राइस द डिमांड विल इंक्रीज सडनली. दैट इज व्हाट हैपेंस विद आईफोन्स आल्सो. आईफोन्स के साथ क्या होता है, जो बिग बिलियन डेज होते हैं सेल के, उन दिनों में बहुत ही ज्यादा आईफोन्स का सेल होता है. ठीक है, दैट इज व्हाट हैपेंस बिकॉज वहां पे प्राइस में स्लाइट डिक्रीज आ गया, सेल बहुत ही ज्यादा ऊपर चला गया. दैट इज द परफेक्ट एग्जांपल ऑफ परफेक्टली इलास्टिक डिमांड. नेक्स्ट इज परफेक्टली इनइलास्टिक डिमांड. अब परफेक्टली इनइलास्टिक डिमांड कहां पे होगी कि अगर आप प्राइस 100 रुपए से गिरा के 20 रुपए भी कर दो, if you decrease the price from 100 rupees to 20 rupees, what will happen? The demand will remain constant. Demand change ही नहीं होगी. हो सकता है थोड़ी बहुत change हो जाए, इतनी सी, that it may increase a bit, but not exactly that there will be equal amount of or equal proportionate of demand change. नहीं, जितना price change हुआ उतना demand change नहीं हो रही है. कितना नहीं हो रही है? that अगर price decrease हुआ है by 80%, if price has decreased by 80%, maybe the demand might decrease or increase by 8% or even less than that. There is very slight difference or very slight increase in demand, बहुत ही कम, 1% or 2%. Why? Because जो इंसान कल तक 1 चम्मच नमक खाता था पूरे दिन में या 2 चम्मच शुगर लेता था पूरे दिन में, वो इंसान आज शुगर का प्राइस डिक्रीज होने पे चीनी नहीं खाने लग जाएगा खाने के बदले. वेरी सिंपल, दैट्स इट. बिकॉज दिस परफेक्टली इनइलास्टिक डिमांड हैपेंस विद दोज गुड्स व्हिच आर नेसेसरी गुड्स. देयरफॉर यहां पे क्या होगा, यहां पे होगा एक चीज, दैट इज परसेंटेज चेंज इन price. Percentage change in price would be more than the percentage change in demand. ठीक है, the demand will not change and the price change will not be equal to or will be more than the demand, the price in the change in the quantity demanded. ठीक है, clear यहां तक. Unitary we already read. The one more aspect of it is that is relatively elastic and relatively inelastic. अब ये दोनों चीजें कुछ ऐसे गुड्स के साथ होती है जहां पे सब्स्टिट्यूट्स भी अवेलेबल होते हैं. जैसे फॉर एग्जांपल कोक और पेप्सी. ठीक है, अगर प्राइस चेंज होता है कोक का, फॉर एग्जांपल 50 रुपए का टिन, 50 रुपए का टिन. ठीक है, बहुत सिंपल सा एग्जांपल है. इफ कोक डिक्रीजेस इट टू ₹45, ठीक है, maybe some of those who do not have a know-how, people who do not have a know-how of the taste, that Coke and Pepsi taste different, they do not have that strict adherence or strict likingness of the two, they are just drinking it to quench their thirst or just for fun. ठीक है, those people may shift only because of the 5 rupees which has decreased, they may shift from there to there. That means that price decrease may lead to change in demand. Price decrease may lead to change in demand, which may increase the demand of Pepsi. But this demand for Pepsi would be more than the price. This demand for Pepsi would be more than the change which is there in price. That is, price अगर यहाँ पे decrease हुआ है कितना, 10%. The demand over here would increase by 20% of Pepsi. This may happen. This may happen. One thing. Second thing, that why would be there relatively elasticity? Because there will be some customers who still, even if this goes 45 क्या 40 पे भी चला जाएगा, ठीक है, और the people who were liking Pepsi, they might come to Coca-Cola and they might like Coke also. They might start having Coke because of its low price. But the problem here is that there will be some customers who will not shift their preferences. They won't change their preferences only because of price. ठीक है, they have their likings and they won't change it. That is why it stays relatively elastic. It is relatively elastic. That is, it is relative to other determinants of it. Therefore, here we will say that the percentage change in price, the percentage change in price would be, or percentage change in demand divided by percentage change in quantity demanded. This would be how much? This would be more than 1 or less than 1? This would be more than 1. ठीक है? Not this. ठीक? Which means that the percentage change in price, the price which changed from rupees 45, from rupees 50 to 45, which means there was just 10% change in price, which means there was 10% change in price may lead to 10% increase in, or may lead to 20% increase in sales. ठीक है? This means that the price and quantity demanded changed but disproportionately, which means that the demand is elastic but it is relatively elastic. It's not exactly that much elastic, it's not exactly changing by 10%, rather it is changing more than 10%. However, at the last, there are some goods which are necessary in nature, but there are, or all the people have to travel, all the people have to purchase cars. Even if the price of cars, or even if their the price of travel increases, there will be still demand in the market. That is what makes a commodity relatively inelastic. Why so? Because there are some goods which, even if their price increases or decreases by proportionate, that is, even if the price of cars increase by 10%, even if the price of cars increase by 10% or it decreases by 10%, the price of cars, even if it increases or decreases by 10%, this will not have large impact on the quantity demanded of cars. ठीक है? There won't be large impacts. That is, अगर ये 10% increase या decrease हो गया, this will lead to just only 4 to 5% of increase or decrease in the quantity demanded. Clear? This will lead to just 4 to 5% of increase or decrease in the quantity demanded. Why would this happen? Because there is a particular group or particular class of people who will be purchasing the cars every year. That is their necessity to travel. That group will somehow manage its funds and have the cars. Why? Because this group has moved out of those people who just are in the inferior goods. See, there is the Maslow's theory of hierarchy of needs. They have fulfilled their social security needs, and now they are moving to a bit luxury items. ठीक है? They are moving to a bit luxury items, and these luxury items, besides being luxury, they are necessity also. That is why their demand will be relatively inelastic. That despite of the price change, there will be less effect on the quantity demanded of these products. With this, we come to an end of this video, and at the end, I would like to announce this thing, that our new channel, that is UPSC IAS Prep or SRIRAM's IAS UPSC Prep. This channel has a motto. The motto is simple, that is, we will be providing effective UPSC oriented, concise, crisp material. Now, on this channel, I take care of one of the critical aspects of UPSC, that is the Indian Express. Indian Express का डिस्कशन इस चैनल पे रोज सुबह 9:30 बजे होता है लाइव. आप उस डिस्कशन में पार्ट बनिए, आप उस डिस्कशन में देखिए कि हम कॉन्वर्सेशन कैसे करते हैं यूट्यूब पे लाइव. और उस डिस्कशन में सबसे अच्छी चीज़ पता है क्या होती है कि हम लोग रोज़ पिछले दिन के क्वेश्चंस को डिस्कस करते हैं और आगे के क्वेश्चंस को भी यहाँ पे अनवील करते हैं. उसके साथ साथ हम ना केवल करंट के टॉपिक्स को पढ़ते हैं, बल्कि उसके साथ साथ जो उसका स्टैटिक पोर्शन होता है और जो पीछे 5 से 10 साल के अंदर जो डेवलपमेंट्स हुई है वो सारी डेवलपमेंट्स को साथ में लेके चलते हैं। वैसे ही इस चैनल पे और भी बहुत सारा कंटेंट है जो यूपीएससी के लिए बहुत ज़्यादा इफेक्टिव होने वाला है। So therefore, you all are requested to go and subscribe to this channel so that all the videos which come up in the upcoming days will notify you. YouTube will notify you for those videos and you will be able to have or get benefited from that content. With this, we conclude this discussion. Thank you.